2 years ago this month, Ontario announced its intention to move ahead with a cap-and-trade system. Last May, the Liberal government passed the necessary legislation to make it happen, and this week it announced the results of the first carbon emissions auction, which sold out more than 25 million allowances in one fell swoop. Let's get into the details of what it all means with Glenn Murray. He is the Minister of Environment and Climate Change and the Liberal MPP for Toronto Centre, and welcome back to TVO.
Thank you, Steve.
Nice to have you here. I always start from the premise that I think the public has heard the expression cap and trade a million times, but don't exactly know what it means. So we do understand that it means putting a price on carbon somehow. Take us to the next step and explain what you're trying to do.
I think it's easy if we break it down to the piece. We'll explain what the cap piece is and the trade piece.
Good.
The cap piece means you put a limit on emissions. So you're basically putting an envelope around how much can be emitted, period.
A cap.
A cap. And that cap is reduced every year. So in Ontario, the cap decline rate is quite steep. It's just under 4.2%. And that means that we give out permits to pollute in the beginning, and then we start taking them away at just over 4% per year. And that guarantees your reductions. So with the cap and trade system, the advantage of it is you're reducing reductions. The trade part is that each major industry polluting site gets a cap based on its current emissions, and it has to stay under those caps. Many of them do, and then they have surpluses. Some of them don't, some of them continue to go up, and then they have to buy or trade with companies that are exceeding their targets, and that's the trade part. And if they can't, or the government makes money, we will sell them permits to pollute, and then we take that money, and that comes back to you in your home. When you go to retrofit your home to reduce your emissions, it comes back to you in electrification of your local transit system, or when you go and buy a vehicle, if you're buying an electric vehicle, you get generous subsidies in Ontario for that. Okay. And that further helps reduce emissions.
Let's break this down a bit, because March 22nd, you auctioned off your first group of greenhouse gas allowances.
Right.
Let's understand who was buying what, giving the money to whom, and for what purpose.
Okay. So you would see cement facilities, you would see petroleum refineries in Sarnia, you would see manufacturing facilities, you would see gas distributors. Anyone who's selling or transacting something whether it's carbon pollution or methane pollution, any of the greenhouse gas. So it's a polluter pay principle. So those are the people that are buying and selling.
And they're buying what?
They're buying allowances from each other, or they're either selling their reductions to someone else, or they're buying reductions from someone.
In essence, they're buying the right to pollute a bit.
Right. And now Ontarians may not realize it, but we already have a cap and trade system on NOx and SOx, nitric oxide, sulfuric oxide, on carbon monoxide. And in the last decade that they've been around, all of those pollutants, which are really harmful ones, are all down over 40%, most of them down over 45%. This is a bigger one, and it's much bigger because carbon dioxide, methane, and nitric oxides are across the entire economy, so so it's a bigger deal.
Okay, so these oil, petroleum refineries, these cement mixing companies, whatever, who put the harmful carbon-related pollution into the air, they are buying the right to pollute.
Right.
They are buying allowances to pollute from you?
From each other.
From each other?
Or from the government.
Or from the government.
Right. And every year there's less pollution because there's less permits to do that. So it's like musical chairs. The music stops, we take a chair away. And then they do interesting things because they're recipients of money. So you'll see the folks in Sarnia will know Nova Corporation. They just put $250 million into starting to decarbonize their facility and cogen facility.
And they did that so they'll have to pay less in the future.
So they're taking money, and then they know that will reduce. Gold Corp. And Big Gold is building the first electric gold mine, so they won't have diesel trucks underneath. They won't need all the ventilation. They'll use less electricity. So they're starting to move to net zero mining. In Sault Ste. Marie, really interesting. Not a place that you might not think of the first place to do that, but St. Mary's Cement bought a new little startup called Pond Biofuel, which uses algae to take the carbon pollution out of the emissions from the cement facility. And now they've moved, so St. Mary's Cement is moving into this whole new business of decarbonizing industrial carbon. So you're getting this secondary startup, new economy emerging on the low carbon economy, which is like the information technology revolution. It sort of started with geeks and warehouses doing apps, and then it changed everyone's business model. So low carbon is a much bigger deal than that. That was a $1 trillion expansion of the Western economy. John Kerry, the former Secretary of State, described the low carbon economy as 6 times that big, about a $6 trillion expansion of the economy. So this is a big deal for jobs and for our future.
So let's do what Woodward and Bernstein said, which is follow the money. Okay,
Right.
so you've explained how the money auctioned off with these permits, with these allowances, they pay other companies,
Right.
they pay you.
Right.
How much money did you realize this past week as a result of this auction?
$472 million.
Not bad. Where does it go?
It goes to you and me,
Well,
mostly.
sort of.
Sort of. So,
how about a little more on that?
okay, well, but that's literally, I mean, this is a dividend bad. So why do I say that? I say that because this isn't a tax. Like we could talk about, why did we not choose a carbon tax? Like why?
Don't go there yet. That's
No.
I know you're going to get to that.
No, but I'm just going to say, so I just say, I'm not going there now, but I'll just say it's not a tax, it's a regulatory fee. And people don't, I mean, to most people, it's just money, but there's actually, legally, there's a real difference.
But that 400 million plus
Right.
is
That's
coming into the Treasury of Ontario,
as a regulatory fee,
and you are spending it on.
only the things that the law allows. We're very restricted in how we can spend it. You couldn't balance the budget or pay nurses' salaries out of it. Do you know what I mean? It has to go to things that you can demonstrate greenhouse gas reductions with.
Such as?
So the electric vehicle charging stations you see going up, a lot of the lows are being paid for. The electrification of the GO system, the financing of ION and Confederation Line, and the expansion of electrified public transit.
So it's all earmarked
Right.
for green-related
You
projects.
go to buy that brand new Chevy Bolt, you're going to get $14,000 back when you per point of sale. So it's, as my friend Charles Sousa says, we're essentially, when you go to buy an electric car, we're sort of, for the first few years to kickstart that, we'll be paying for your electric engine, or the money will come from the money that you paid at the pump. So when you go to retrofit your home and you get a thermal system or solar panels, or you get that high efficiency furnace, you're going to get a very generous subsidy
Okay,
on that.
I'm getting you so far, but then I read that some of Ontario's largest carbon emitters are being given free allowances at the moment that they don't have to pay for. Explain that to me.
Well, I mean, free is a very politicized word in that.
Okay.
So the way a cap and trade system works is you don't charge everyone 100% on all of the pollution in the beginning. Again, in the carbon tax system you do, and when we talk to Ontarians, we talk to industry, they said, that doesn't work for us, because in British Columbia, they lost a lot of their cement manufacturing. They just offshored, and then they have to...
Because they have a carbon tax there.
They had a carbon tax. They hit everyone with a carbon tax right away. There was no trading. There was no mechanism for investment. And what happened is their cement plants started closing down and leaving. And why? That's an environmental, not just an economic problem, because then you start importing cement from China, from the United States, and that comes with a carbon footprint the size of Texas. So that's called leakage. So that's what we're trying to avoid. You don't want companies to leave, and you don't want to solve your problem by simply moving the carbon pollution across the border.
I get that, but having said that, you will note, of course, this past week, the Ontario Chamber of Commerce put out a letter saying to Premier Wynne, we are very nervous about this. I mean, I'm paraphrasing here. We're very nervous about your new cap and trade system because we are concerned it will make us less competitive and that the province will leak businesses. Businesses will leave because of this. What's the response to that?
Well, exactly what I said. So we worked with them, and the nine large emitting industry associations, from cement all the way to mining, all supported and continue to work with us on that. And that would be the risk.
So where does this letter come from?
It comes from the Chamber of Commerce, who are nervous about it.
Who represent all of the businesses of the province.
Well, it's different. I mean, if you had Mike McSweeney in from the Cement Association, which is one of the most carbon intensive, he'd explain to you why they're not worried about that. He'd talk to you about St. Mary Cement and that. If you had the folks in from Goldcorp, the big industrial, because there's about 250 large industrial sites that are represented that. I think the Chamber of Commerce and the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters Association, the latter, which has gotten some considerable money for us to work with smaller businesses, are understandably nervous about any change. That's the nature of a Chamber of Commerce. But they're at the table with us. We're working on all the regulations with them. The Canadian Manufacturers Association has a $25 million fund of an early down payment on cap and trade revenues. They are developing programs to help businesses make those same building retrofits in small and medium businesses that reduce the cost of operating their businesses, reduce the cost of heating and cooling their facilities. So we see the chamber as a strategic partner, and they're in the room working with us, and they talk about the next compliance period, right? We're ahead of everyone else.
Okay, they're in the room, but they put out a letter saying that they're pretty concerned.
Yeah, no, but they should be. I'm concerned too. I mean, this is not, this is not for the faint of heart. We're facing a crisis where if we did nothing, we're leaving our children and grandchildren with a planet that's probably not that livable for them. Okay, so the stakes are high here on both sides, but they have been in the room. They are working with us on it, and their concerns are ones that we share. We accept them and we share them.
Let's. One of the other things I want to understand better here is the notion that the auction that you did this past week, which brought in more than $400 million as you've described it, is not the one and only auction that will be happening. There are other auctions to come. In fact, I think you also sold about a third of future allotments that were available now, but really related to future auctions. Can you explain that?
So it works as a pure market. I can't interfere in it. It works as independently as a stock market or a commodities market. And like with those, there's a futures market. So companies that think the price is going to go up may want to buy more than they need earlier. So they'll buy 2020 credits, and they'll buy 2019 credits. And there's a certain amount of those that are sold in advance. And that's essentially what they've done. So they're basically doing that because the price now is $18. If they think their price is going to be $22 or $23 5 years out, they may make an early investment.
Sure. Why $18? How did that get hit on?
It's a supply and demand. There's a floor, so it was just above the floor price, slightly above the floor price on these things, and it's a supply and demand market.
Sounds kind of low, though, isn't it?
No, see, we actually want it to be low, Steve.
You want it to be low because
what? Well, because again, there's two choices. About 60% of the world's economy is covered by a carbon price now. 60% when China goes this year. 90% of that is cap and trade. Less than 10%, I think, is actually taxes. The reason is that what we're trying to do in Ontario is make this as inexpensive for Ontarians and businesses to take that pollution out of our economy and to prevent, or do our share to prevent, the devastating impacts of climate change. Because a tax doesn't have the cap system, the only way that a tax works, it has to be so enormously high that it's a massive disincentive for polluting, right? So if we had a tax, the tax would have to be the David Sawyer and the economists who did the work for us when they printed the choice. They said, okay, so Ontario government, if you choose a tax, you're going to have to start at $74 a ton. That's where you're going to have to be.
As opposed to 18.
As opposed to 18.
Which is where you are with cap and trade.
Which means that the price at the pump would have jumped by over 16 cents day one. You would have had the problems that BC had. You would have seen major industries hit with massive costs that would have caused the problems that the Chamber of Commerce raised. We agree with the Chamber of Commerce. We don't want either leakage of pollution or relocation of jobs. And so when you see Nova, a big petroleum refinery, when you see Goldcorp, switching to electric vehicles, these tell you that cap and trade is an economic positive. It stimulates job creation. It creates new investments. We have to retrofit every single building in Ontario. That's 25% of our GHG. So your house, people's businesses, all have to be modernized. And you go up to the top of the CN Tower and look at all the buildings you can just see from there, and imagine how many jobs. I mean, the first $2.5 billion that we'll be putting in the next couple of years into building retrofits creates 33,000 jobs in Ontario, stimulates geothermal, all kinds of new clean technologies, Ontario companies like Ecobee, smart thermostats, and it will generate about another $7.5 to $10 billion in economic activity. And so I can't think of anything in Ontario history, in the modern history of Ontario, that will have created such stimulus for small businesses and such a reduction in people's home heating and energy costs. The Pembina Institute estimates that a retrofitted home costs about half as much to heat and cool as a pre-retrofitted home.
Let me follow up on something.
So there's a lot of really big benefits that come with this.
I know you're always very messianic about what you talk about in the studio, which makes you hard to jump in on, but I'm going to try anyway. I want to follow up on, I was going to get to this later, but since you just brought it up, I want to follow up on the difference between the cap and trade system, which you have preferred, versus the carbon tax system, which British Columbia had, some other jurisdictions have, and which the leader of the opposition, Patrick Brown, has said he prefers. To that end, I want to read this graphic. I note the other day that Peter Tabuns, I think, the NDP environment critic, came over and shook your hand after the $400 million of revenues were announced because of the first auction. So he was, I guess, pleased about that. But Patrick Brown had this to say: "I would dismantle cap and trade. It makes Ontario less competitive, and if it was really about the environment, it would not be a revenue tool for government." Brown called the program a $1.9 billion cash grab. He is promising instead to implement a carbon tax to cut emissions and make it revenue neutral by providing rebates of some combination of income tax, sales tax, or small business taxes. A different approach. Instead of taking those revenues and spending them on green projects, which you're doing, he says he would rebate that money, whatever the revenues end up being, to people in tax breaks. Okay, why is his approach not the preferred approach in your view?
I would say there's three big problems with it. And to be fair to Patrick Brown, we were faced with the same question. We took a year to study it. We didn't jump to this conclusion. We said there's the tax option and there's the cap and trade option. And we hired a lot of economists. And I think the first reason is that we thought that a carbon tax is unaffordable, because it's hard if your household income is $40,000 or $50,000 and you're driving a 6-year-old car and worrying about your kids or your lad. You need some capital in your pocket to change that furnace out. You need some help to buy that Chevy Bolt, when you replace your car. And we have a retirement program as well. Hard to make a tax cut, whatever that might be, work in a way that would be meaningful. At the other end, the big industries, all said to us, don't do that. Don't do that. We need the partnership. And they're responding. The auto sector, every second day I pick up the paper, there's a story about GM deploying electric vehicles, about GM in St. Catherine using biofuels to cut not just to decarbonize their plant. So all of those big, massive, multi-$100 million investments that have to be made, not just to retrofit those industrial facilities, but to also modernize them. I mean, that's one of the exciting things that we're seeing here, is that people are modernizing their industrial facilities that have been long waiting for investment. You don't get that with a tax. The other thing is there's about 5 megatons that would not be achieved with a tax. One of the first things when I saw the report from The Economist, I said, well, why is the cap and trade reductions 18 megatons and with a tax we only get 12? He said, because at a tax, you'd actually see the relocation of business out. You just simply can't accommodate that. You don't have the capital coming back to help business, and you don't have the investment innovation mechanism where they can see if they make an investment in the market, it's guaranteed. They don't have to get government approval. They get the reductions, they get the trade, they get the value.
Carbon tax has the advantage of simplicity, though, right? You can explain that easily. Yeah. People understand that if they go to the pumps and they pay X number of dollars extra for gasoline, they will receive a rebate or a tax cut in return.
So
it's pretty simple.
People who want to govern can't just have simple solutions to complex problems, because they generally don't work. And why 90% of the jurisdictions now that are choosing a pricing system, and almost all industry supports cap and trade, because it's more affordable and because it is slightly more complex, but it actually addresses the economic needs of businesses and the affordability factor for regular folks out there, to make it affordable and to give business a mechanism that they can manage. Businesses know how to use a market. The market, like all markets, drives out the lowest cost and most efficient reductions. So the first things that businesses do when they look at what do we do, they're going to say, okay, so let's get the low-hanging fruit. A tax system doesn't give you a mechanism. It doesn't give you a reward for investment. There's no market. There's no trading. There's no investment mechanism.
Does it fill the government's coffers bigger, though?
It might, but we didn't do this as an exercise to get revenue. As I said, because it's a regulatory fee, we're very restricted in it, and we have the Auditor General looking at it, the Financial Accountability Officer looking at it, and the Environmental Commissioner looking at it, and they all do independent reports on this. So to say there's a high degree of transparency, I would say this is the most evaluated and monitored money in government today.
All right, let me follow up on the Environmental Commissioner angle. Diane Sachs has been on this program before. You know her well. She has warned that it may end up being cheaper for Ontario businesses to buy their allowances, their carbon credits, as we described earlier, from, for example, other players in our new cap and trade market, like California, because it might be cheaper for them to do that. That might therefore slow in the province of Ontario, efforts to create a lower carbon economy, If that happens, I admit we're into hypotheticals here, but let's just play it out. If that happens, that our businesses want to buy their credits from California instead of Ontario, A, do we lose the money? And B, does it defeat the purpose of the whole thing in the first place, which is to lower the pollution here? Mm-hmm. Answer.
Okay. Yeah. Three parts to that. One, the very foundation of the Paris Agreement, there was something called Section 6, which made our federal Minister of the Environment and Climate Change, Catherine McKenna, quite famous because she negotiated successfully Clause 6 of the Paris Agreement. And that is considered one of the most important things. That is what allows for trading between jurisdictions of reductions. They're called ITMOs, internationally transferable mitigation outcomes.
Minister, don't make my head hurt here, okay?
No, so I'm going to say,
let's focus. So
let's not use that word, okay? Because no one knows what the heck I'm talking about. Let's use the word, it's basically the permission for, in years that certain jurisdictions can't get all the reductions, much like companies trade, they can trade back and forth. And the World Bank says that cuts the cost of reducing emissions by about 1/3, and it rapidly accelerates the rate at which we reduce carbon dioxide pollution around the planet. Because it's not just whether those reductions are made in Ontario or whether they're made in Britain or whether they're made in South Korea.
No, I get it. Pollution traverses borders.
Right. So
are we missing out? If we end up having our businesses buying carbon credits from California instead of from Ontario, do we miss out on revenue, and does it defeat the purpose of lowering pollution here?
So just point one is it's a global exercise, and without that, it's very expensive and it's very slow. So it's not just about Ontario, it's about working with the world to do that. If everyone isn't doing it, then we don't win. The second thing is the issue of emissions in any time frame being able to be reduced in a country is limited. One of the things the Canadian government would tell you if you had the federal minister on, she would tell you they got a problem because they signed on to the Harper floor, 14% below 2005 levels by 2030. They will tell you that there's 100 megatons that they can't figure out if everyone does everything all the time. We still come out with 100 megatons short to meet that target. So the federal government, and this was a problem if you remember with Paul Martin and Jean Chrétien when they had the last commitment to Kyoto, that they were going to have to buy credits or offsets internationally with public dollars. In a cap and trade system, the public sector doesn't take tax dollars to do that. Companies trade. And the final and third point is, you can't just look at the movement. There will be Ontario companies, we estimate about 5 megatons of the 20 megatons will probably have to be bought outside of Ontario. But you have to understand the whole inflow and outflow. So Stephen, we import $42 billion of fossil fuels every year. It's one of Ontario's biggest imports. If you reduce that by 10%, which we think we can do in the next couple of years, that's $4.2 billion that is not leaving the province, that is being replaced by clean local energy, jobs, technologies, and conservation, creating a lot more jobs here and the substitution for that. If a small amount of money or smaller amounts of money go to California or go to some other jurisdiction as a result of cap and trade, the net flow of capital, just from the reductions of imported carbon fuel by any standard, dwarfs that. So if you look at companies, maybe some of those big refineries can't get their reductions within 5 years. They have to buy in that international market. There's still, for Ontario, it's still a massive net saving because the rate which we will reduce fossil fuel imports will mean that we'll see a very major net capital inflow into Ontario overall.
Strangely enough, we just did 25 minutes on this and I feel we've barely scratched the surface. But I feel we know more about it now than we did before. So Glenn Murray, Minister of Environment and Climate Change, thank you for coming into TVO tonight.
It's the toughest thing to talk about. It's not an easy topic.
Trust me, I hear you. But I'm glad we took a shot at it tonight.
Thank you so
for
much.
Coming in.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit TVO.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.